In this video, we'll explore Paper 1 Question 5, the creative writing question, how to plan and write your response. So in this question, it's 40 marks. It's half of the paper and a quarter of GCSE overall. It's a big question. You've got to get it right. It's 24 marks for story and structure and 16 marks for your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. 45 minutes for this question overall. The most important word in the assessment objectives is communicate. Clear communication between you and the story that you're writing for the examiner to read. A communication of ideas as well as structural and language features and the characters themselves. Students have to produce a piece of writing that communicates to the reader on one of two options. You will have a narrative question or a picture, but it's always the quality of your writing that counts. So you have to communicate effectively, link and develop your ideas, sequence the paragraphs using discourse markers in paper 2, but in paper 1 it may be structural features. Use a range of vocabulary, clear, complex vocabulary as well where possible. Linguistic devices for effect, so use your language features. Make sure that you can engage and convince the reader, the examiner, of what your story is about. So a simple story well told is the rule for this question. And make sure you sustain the tone, the tense, the perspective, the style and register straight all the way through. Don't make it up as you're going along. There's too much at stake here. So make sure that you adopt a quality rather than quantity approach. Students can write loads, but it doesn't mean that they're going to get a high mark. So don't do that. Don't write loads and loads. Make sure that you write well by planning, constructing, and crafting your work. Take your time and make sure that you write 2 to 3 sides at most. You don't need to do any more than that in 45 minutes, especially if 10 minutes is planning of it, so that you have about 35 minutes writing time. So 2 to 3 sides at most is enough. It's what you do, not how much you write that will pass this question. So a convincing character, and the convincing character is always best if you base it on someone you know or based on yourself. A convincing story, a range of language features for question 2 to embed those, structural features for question 3, embed those, and a full range of SPaG, spelling, punctuation, and grammar to show your ability as a writer. So when you're using the SPaG, make sure that you think about technical accuracy. Many students are able to write with general precision, but if you want to get the highest marks, you should be employing colons, semicolons, brackets, and dashes, not just full stops and commas. Or at the bottom there, as it says about apostrophes, unable to punctuate correctly will end up holding you back. Comma splicing is where you don't put in full stops. You keep putting too many commas. So read your sentences. As long as it makes sense, it must be more accurate than you think. So put a full stop in, capital letter, start again. Always break down the question. This is a narrative question here. Write a story about 2 people from very different backgrounds. It's a very open question, but it is based on the source material. So it's still related to the source. So is there any elements from the source that you can borrow? Any elements that will help you and inspire you on your own story? Of course, you can't copy it, but there are certainly elements in there that you can more than borrow. That's absolutely fine. Make it personal. Your top of your band is convincing. It's easier to be convincing if the story and characters are true. So don't make it up in a wildly exaggerated, imaginative way. Just keep it simple and tell it well. Don't copy pre-existing things. TV shows, films, music videos, computer games. We've seen it all before and it doesn't hit the top mark. So you must make the story your own, please. Okay, there are different ways of looking at the picture. The first one's called box planning, where you separate important elements of the picture that you want to explore in your story. Second one, place yourself in the scene at the moment. Where are you? What are you doing there? What can you see? What can you smell? What is the pace? What is the mood? What structural features have been used? What is your story? Think about pyramid planning. We talk about this a lot when we look at structure. Stories reach the high point in the middle and then go fast and quickly downhill towards the ending at the other side. And hopefully it will be well written and dramatic. But of course, as we know, that not all stories can achieve that. But think about your start, think about your rising action, think about the pivotal moment of change in the story and how we start rushing towards the ending. If you can't end your story in the exam, don't. You're under no obligation to finish your story. You're under the obligation of writing well to tell a story. Talking of sequence in your story, think about a layer of photographs. So if you are looking through photographs and this was the last one, think about all the ones that led up to this moment. What other photographs did this person experience to lead them to this moment? So think about life as a series of photographs as a structure, possibly. Or think about symbolism, things that represent other things. Trees can represent nature or age. Kites can represent freedom. Handcuffs can represent prisoners, prison of the mind if it's a metaphor. Painting, creativity, imagination. Forgery, art robbery, anything at all. Think about linking back through the symbols of the things that you use in the story that tell a greater story than themselves. So good points from the Examiner's Report 2019 then. For the descriptive writing task, the most successful approaches used the image as a springboard to their imaginations. So they didn't just describe the picture, which won't get the marks, but used it to highlight their imaginations and go into new worlds based on the picture itself. Students interpreted the title of the narrative task in lots of different ways. And that's good. It shows individuality, it shows maturity, possibly sensitivity. By reading into things deeply, they weren't held back by others in the room or what they were perceiving other people wanted them to achieve, such as some invisible examiner, for instance. Students writing fewer write consciously crafted work. So make sure that you do that. Don't write a lot, write well. And some things to avoid. Avoid excessive planning. Some people's plans are so detailed that they don't have time to write properly. And that's a great shame and something we've got to work on. Think about your technical accuracy. Get your full stops and your commas in. That's essential. But think about varying your vocabulary, varying your terminology techniques, your language features and techniques, because again, you will be rewarded at a higher level if you take care and attention over your work. If we look at a part of your mark scheme for clear and consistent communication, it's broken into content and organization. So your content is your story. Your organization is how well you are drafting and structuring your story. So keeping those two close together is a big, important push. So you're looking at clear communication, clear style and tone, sophisticated vocabulary, engaging writing, coherent paragraphing, and some use of structural features as well. You're also looking for clear range of sentences, some long, some short, range of punctuation, variety of sentences, whether it's rhetorical or short sentences, long sentences, minor paragraphing of 1-2 words long, or minor sentences as well, of 1 or 2 words long. All these things are important so that we can get to the end goal of making sure that when the question comes up, you recognize the mark scheme, 24 and 16, you give yourself 10 minutes to plan, and then you're off and running with the fruits of your labor, with clear, well-written, well-constructed stories with a good variance and use of SPaG overall.